Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Drabinski, and I'm here today for the Ideas on Fire webinar, Getting the Most Out of Writing Groups. And the way it will work today is, second, I'll say goodbye and pop up the PowerPoint, and we'll work through the slides and talk about some strategies this new year to make writing groups that work. At the end of the webinar, I'll come back to this screen, and if you write anything in that column that's to your right, I'll be able to address those questions, and we can have a chat about it. So I'm excited that you're here today. And now I'm going to go ahead and move to the PowerPoint. Here we go. Oops. Okay, so today's webinar is about getting the most out of writing groups. And we thought it was a good idea to talk about this right now because as we all hit the new year, we start to make new intentions for what our productivity is going to look like. And a lot of us will decide to start writing groups as a way to become accountable in our writing, in a way to make connections with other writers, etc. So that's what we'll talk about today. On tap today, we'll start by talking about why to organize writing groups, and this will be short because if you're watching this webinar, chances are you know why you want one. And then we'll talk about some strategies for making a writing group that works, and this includes goal setting, considering types of writing groups, and then some nitty-gritty about making it happen, some tools to make it work, and we'll talk about some online tools that groups can use to stay in touch, and then we'll discuss accountability. What happens when people stop, including oneself, right? When we stop doing the things necessary to make the writing group work, and how can we address those complications to make sure that we have something good going forward. And we'll end by talking about ending and leaving writing groups. Just because you start one doesn't mean it has to last forever. So there are a lot of different reasons to organize a writing group. And this is something to keep in mind when you're deciding you want one. I think a lot of times we say to ourselves, let's have a writing group. That'll be great. And if someone asks you to join a writing group, it's tempting to just say yes, but you want to think about some of the reasons why you'd organize them. One is for a sense of community. As academics, so much of what we do is done in solitude. Our writing is something we tend to keep to ourselves, and we can often develop a real resistance to even sharing our writing. And that has a lot to do, I think, with the way that writing is so personal to us, and it feels like we're letting people see a part of ourselves. And that can be really scary to be vulnerable in that way. So we might start a writing group just for the community, the sense of community of other writers. Another good reason to organize a writing group is to help you meet deadlines and to set yourself deadlines. Again, because of so much of the writing we do as academics is written just for us and we are the only motivator. Setting deadlines of, well, I'm meeting the writing group in 2 weeks, I have to have a piece ready for them, can be really helpful. So that's another good reason to organize a writing group. Accountability, this goes hand in hand with accountability. Writing groups can help work as accountability systems for us when we have trouble sticking to our own deadlines or getting work done. If you feel like you have to report to your writing group, that can often be enough of a push to get you writing where otherwise you might not. Writing group can also give you intellectual support. For those of us in interdisciplinary programs, this can be really important. If you're in an interdisciplinary program but writing for a political science journal, for example, it can feel really alienating and kind of lonely. But if you can get a writing group that's interdisciplinary, you can get often much better support for your intellectual projects. And then finally, I think that writing groups are really good for networking. Writing groups can help you form a really tight bonds with your writing group members that will serve you well in the future in terms of your own writing and publishing, job searches, just support for the kinds of rejection we face as academics. So that networking can be really, really important, and the bonds you form with a writing group can be much stronger than you would form in, say, a seminar. So those are some of the reasons to organize a writing group. And I think it's important to think about why you want one before you start one, because that'll help you vision what your goals for the writing group will be. So the next thing I wanted to talk about today was setting writing group goals. And this is a really important step in the writing group. And there was a question, Jennifer, I think you asked the question, do different kinds of writing groups work better for different levels? Like if you're talking about chairs or assistant professor, faculty members, or graduate students, these kinds of different populations, right, might find different writing groups to be differently helpful. Rather than think, for this moment, rather than think about who's in your writing group, I would encourage you to think about why you want to start one. So the goals are similar to the reasons to start a writing group. Is your goal community? Just to have a group of people who understand what it's like to stare at a blank screen for 1,000 hours and feel really good about getting a sentence down, right? Is it about having a community of people you can just talk about the process with? That's an absolutely good reason to have a writing group, right? It can take away a lot of the feelings of loneliness that come with writing. You might want to set up a writing group for actual substantive feedback from other people who are either in your field or in adjacent fields who will be able to push your thinking. This is a different kind of writing group than one that's about community, and it's going to require a different set of expectations and a different set of goals. But a writing group for feedback is really about sharing written pieces of work for critique. You might want to set up a writing group to become a better writer. And by this, I mean thinking about the ways that you're going to incorporate feedback from your peers, but also give you a chance to read a lot of other people's writing, which can help you become a better writer yourself. Another sort of writing group goal that you might have is to become a better editor. For those of us in fields where we're trying to develop skills outside of that we can use outside of the academy, a writing group can often be a good entry into learning some of the tools of editing. And editing is a lot more than just the kind of feedback you give in a writing group, but this can give you some chances to exercise some of that editorial work and learn to be a better at critique of other people's writing. Your writing group goal might be to set and keep deadlines, and that's really different from a feedback writing group, right? The deadline writing group is about setting the goal that everyone is trying to meet a similar deadline, or we all have deadlines and that's what we're writing towards. And that's different from community, where we're going to come together and talk about the process. It's different from feedback. It's really about sort of setting up a system that pushes you to meet certain benchmarks with your writing. And again, this is tied into the notion of the writing group goal as being accountability, right? If your writing group goal is to create a system where you owe someone an explanation, and this can often be helpful, you owe somebody a report, that kind of accountability system is often really important for us to get our writing done. So if that's your writing group goal, for example, then feedback might not be the point, right? You might come together as a writing group to check in, right? And that might be the main goal. You don't necessarily have to, in a writing group, engage in substantive feedback. That can sometimes be, the substantive feedback writing group requires a lot of time and energy. And if you're on a deadline, that might not be the best use of it. So it's really good to be honest up front about what your goals for the group are. And then finally, if networking is your goal, then putting together a writing group as members who are at different levels, or members who are in different kinds of departments, or members who do different kinds of writing. Maybe you want someone who's a freelance writer in a writing group with other academics. This can give you a networking writing group, right? As a place where we're going to share sort of the tips of our different trades and think of ways to support each other going forward. So these are all different goals, and your writing group can have multiple goals, obviously, but I think it's really important to think up front about what it is that you want to get out of it. And if you're the organizer of the writing group, it's really important to find other people who share your goal and make sure everybody's on the same page. Because if someone's coming to the group expecting that we're all here to meet deadlines, and you've got members who are there for the social or the process conversation part, those can that can lead to group conflict and keep the group from doing what it needs to do for either member. So it's really important to articulate those goals together. So there are so when you're thinking about these sort of big goals, I want to talk a little bit about some of the different types of writing groups that have worked well for people. One is, I think we don't talk about this one a lot, but it can be really useful, a writing group that's for writing. And this is a writing group where you might meet in person or online. You may have a sort of a digital component, and you just write together for a certain period of time. And you're not talking to each other. You're not swapping writing. You're not talking about the process, except maybe at the beginning or the end. But what you're mostly doing is writing together. This takes away the lonely aspect of writing, and it's its own accountability system. If we're facing each other at the coffee shop and you're typing away and I'm mousing on Facebook, right, it has a kind of effect, right? This is the writing time. We're all here doing the writing. So I think this is sort of underutilized kind of writing group, and it's about writing as production. So that's one type of writing group to consider. And that might be a group that's even just a partner, but I think can be really, really helpful. You can also have writing groups for critiquing, right? And this is the writing groups that are going to be about feedback. So when you're approaching people to set up a writing group, it can be helpful to sort of show them explain these types to them and see what they're in for. So a writing group that's for critiquing is about taking each other's work really seriously and trying to, and spending a lot of time with each other's writing, and giving a lot of substantive feedback and being open to incorporating feedback into your own writing. I want to pause here for a second because I think this is the most common kind of writing group. And when people say, "Do you want to be my writing group?" they mean this kind of writing group. I would caution you to think about what your larger set of writing priorities are, and if spending the time necessary to do a good critique writing group, it doesn't fit with your plan and priorities, this is one to sort of step back from. One can share writing and read each other's writing and have a casual conversations about it. But if you want substantive critique in that writing group, know that that's going to require a lot of time away from your own writing. And that can be great, right? It can be intellectually interesting and important. It can be really helpful for pushing your own work. But just remember that it's a big commitment if you want to do that well. You can also have a writing group that's for talking about writing, and these can be really helpful if you just need a group of people who understand that it sucks and you can come together and talk about it. Or you can talk about your successes, or you can come together and talk about strategies, right? So you could have a writing group that's for talking about writing, and you could set topics for each meeting, like let's talk about finding a publisher, or let's talk about what to do when you have writer's block, or something like that. So a writing group for talking about writing doesn't require swapping writing or doing actual writing, but can be really helpful in kind of moral support that you need, that a lot of us need when we're writing. And then the final group is a writing group for accountability. And this is a form of writing group that I think works really well online, to have a kind of online like Google spreadsheet check-in component where people are just popping in and reporting what they've done and what they've written. If you're in the Grad School Rockstars program, using the Pomodoro channel or the writing channel to just come in and report what you did, just feeling like you need to report can sometimes be just as much accountability as you need. So this is a writing group that can, quote, meet every day, right, to offer the kind of accountability structure that you need. So those are sort of four main types of writing groups that sort of connect with some of the different goals of writing groups to think about when you're setting yours up. So making it happen. Once you've decided on your goals, the question is, how do you go about making the writing group? And here at Ideas on Fire, we've all done a lot of writing groups, and they can get really unwieldy when there's a lot of people in it, and it can be less than helpful and meet goals in not, it can make it difficult to reach some of your goals. So approach one to three others to gauge interest. A good writing group size is about 3 to 4 people. If you're doing a writing group for writing, sometimes, like I said before, working in pairs can really be sufficient. So approach a few others to gauge interest. And then the question is, who do you approach? I think that to answer that question that was posed earlier, if it can be really helpful to work with all people who are at the same level or have the same goal, right? So if it's all new assistant professors working to get a journal article out, that can make a great writing group that's built around accountability and deadlines, because we're all working towards the same thing, and we can share strategies for, you know, how do you know it's ready to send out? How do you pick a journal? What do you do if it gets rejected? Sort of questions like that. So it might make sense to choose people who are working on similar goals. Uh, it can also be it's helpful to think about what fields you think would come together and work well together in a writing group. If you're in an interdisciplinary program, would it be helpful to have only other interdisciplinary scholars who share the kind of writing challenges that you do? Or would it be helpful to have people from disciplines that you might be interested in so that you can get a sense of some of the patterns of writing in those disciplines? So it really is about your goals for the writing group, which is why I think you've got to start there. Now, who should not be in your writing group? This is a good question. I think it's really important that you should only have people, and this should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. You should only have people in your writing group with whom there's a shared mutual respect. And that means a respect for ideas, for process, for stage in career. I think that's really important. Having people from different, right? If you're a graduate student, having a writing group with professors can often reproduce the power differentials that make it really hard to share work, right? So I think that's not a great idea necessarily, right? If you're working on the same goal, right? Your mileage may vary, you know, your communities, but people who you already respect and who respect you and who share a similar sense of work ethic. I've seen writing groups that start around a sense of accountability, and there are members who don't check in, and then the accountability system can sort of fall apart. So pick people or approach people who you think share your similar goals and are going to be able to follow through with you. And then once you've got a few people together, it's really important to create a shared vision of what the group will look like. And I think this is important because, especially here at the beginning of a new year, a lot of people are going to be joining a lot of writing groups and reading groups and have a lot of big plans. And we know that priorities shift as life happens. And creating a shared vision from the start gives you a sense both of what everyone's goals are, but also everybody's limitations. When we're creating that shared vision, I think it's important to go through the list of goals and sort of types of writing groups that we just talked about, because that can help people articulate for themselves what it is they want to get out of this thing. And in terms of what that shared vision of the writing group might look like, it's important that everybody agree on the number of participants. Everyone's always got a friend they also want to invite, but think about keeping the numbers fairly small so that you can have a tight-knit group that really works. You then need to decide if you want to meet in person or online. In-person writing groups are great, but online writing groups can also work, especially if you're working with people in different places or schedules that are really hard to match. So we'll talk in a second about some online tools for a writing group that can work. If people want to meet in person, it's really important at this stage to get a sense of people's schedules and also how often you might want to meet. Then finally, talk frankly about expectations. What will make this group work for you? And really spend some time reflecting on that. Like, what do you need everybody to do and you need yourself to do to make the writing group work? And having a sense of those expectations from the start can help you when things with the writing group start to get out of whack as other parts of people's lives take over. So having a sense of those expectations can be really helpful. So some tools to make it work. I think there are a lot of online tools that can help, especially with the writing groups that are about accountability or meeting deadlines, or even groups that are about talking about process. There's a program that a lot of groups use called Slack, and Slack is like a private chat channel, and you can have it's a chat, what do you call it? It's a chat app. It's on the internet. If you Google slack.com, it comes up. Anyway, you can set different channels in Slack to talk about different issues in your writing group. So for example, you could have a sort of a subgroup in Slack that's about writing process, where people in the writing group can go at any time or at a set time when you want to meet online and talk about issues they're facing, like a writer's block or something like that. And then you can also set up a separate section of the chat for check-ins for an accountability program where you might pop in and say, I've completed, I wrote for 25 minutes today. And that can, if your writing group is about accountability or has an accountability component, that can work really well. So that's just one example. There's a ton of different kinds of software to manage these sort of group activities. So look around and find something that works for you. Another online tool that you're probably already using is Google Docs. Google Docs is a great way to share writing if you're in a writing group that wants to share for critique. This can be really helpful. Everyone can have access to the same document and work online with it. And so Google Docs can be really helpful for that. You can also use Google Docs to set up a spreadsheet that allows people to check in about their writing. So in terms of an accountability system, you could have a column that has dates and names, dates across the top, names across the bottom, and you just go in and put an X on the days that you wrote. Like something really simple like that can be great for accountability in a writing group, and it's pretty easy to set up. You can also do chat in Google Groups or other ways of sort of doing chat. And inside, you can do chats inside of Google Docs, comments and things to sort of be able to meet even when you can't meet in real time. And then you can also use social media tools. So if everybody in your writing group is on Facebook, you can have a private Facebook, and they're all sitting on Facebook all day, like a lot of us are. You can have a Facebook group that's for your writing group, and you can meet virtually there or check in there. That can also be helpful. A lot of people don't want to combine their social media and their work lives, and that makes a lot of sense. If that's you, pretend you didn't hear that. These are just a few examples of online tools that can really help. I don't think that they necessarily replace the offline tools, though. A lot of what's great about writing groups is we get to see each other. We get to hold each other's pieces of paper. We get to actually have a conversation with somebody in real time. And I think that that's what makes writing groups so great. So if at all possible, you'll also want to have your offline tools. And these are just, basically having meeting spaces. And often it's helpful to meet off campus or in somebody's home for food or a coffee shop. But it's often nice to get out, and it gives the writing group a kind of social experience as well. And it gives you a chance to share resources, share food, share drinks, share the kinds of resources that you might have at your institution, right? If you've got a writing group of people who don't have access to the kinds of computing or printing things that you do, like the kind of offline meeting can give you a chance to share those resources. So these are just some of the tools that can help make a productive writing group. I think the online tools are really helpful as an add-on to organizing the writing group. I next want to talk a little bit about accountability in the writing group. So I think it's important to articulate for ourselves what role the writing group will play in our work life. Is it, if you're having a writing group that's all chairs of departments, for example, what are the other dynamics in play that could affect how the writing group dynamic, right? Is this going to be a place where you feel comfortable talking openly and honestly about some struggles with writing, or is this going to be a place where you feel like you're doing another level of performance, right? Is this going to be your only system of accountability for writing, or will it be your only form of critique, right? Are you a graduate student who has a sort of not very involved committee, and this is like really central to your writing life? That means that the writing group takes on an increased importance, right? So you want to think about what role it'll play in your work life, and is that appropriate for you? Meaning, like, is that what you want? When you're setting goals with your writing group, I think it's helpful to discuss how people will stay accountable to the group. And by that I mean a lot of people will sign up for the writing group, but they'll sort of fade away as other things come in. So how do you sort of ensure that people will continue to be involved? And that might mean, requiring everybody to attend at least one meeting a semester, or perhaps it's about asking everybody to check in every 2 weeks on the, in the Slack group to make sure we know we're all still here or something like that. So just talk about ways that that you and other people can stay accountable to the group so that it keeps working. Another thing to discuss from the front end is how the group will handle flagging participation. What are the ways in and out of the writing group for people? Is if someone finds they're overwhelmed with other kinds of work, they should just tell the group, right? This shouldn't be another place where we let people down. This should be something, the writing group should be something that feeds us and makes us more productive. So I think creating an atmosphere from the beginning that says, hey, we understand things are going to come up. Let's just make sure we talk about it, can be very helpful in making sure the group doesn't completely dissipate, especially if it's a group that you need, which is why you started it. You should also talk as a group about when and if new writers should be invited in to join the group. Because sometimes, you'll have a new colleague or someone meets someone at a campus event and they think this person would be great for the writing group. Just talk a little bit about why or why not you want to open the invitation to other people. Just good to know, to have a sense of where people are at on the front end. And then I wanted to just end this webinar by talking about when is it time for the writing group to end, right? Writing groups don't have to last forever. So writing groups, I wanted to end by just talking about how writing groups work when they work for you, right? If the writing group becomes another chore that you dread, that's not a great writing group. If the writing group is actually taking time away from your writing that you need to get done, that's not a writing group that works for you. It's really important to sort of check in with yourself about whether or not the writing group is meeting those initial goals. And if it's not, the question is, can this writing group be saved? And it often can be saved. It's often about changing goals. Maybe you thought you wanted a writing group for critique, but you realize you don't have time for that. And what you actually want is a writing group for writing where you sit and everyone produces writing, because that's what you're struggling with. Right? Just talk about that and change the goal. You can also change time frames. So I realize as we're approaching the end that I haven't talked about how often a writing group should meet. I think it depends what kind of writing group it is. If it's an accountability writing group, having even a daily check-in online can be super helpful for people, or every week pop in and say, I wrote this many words, or I spent this many hours writing. That can be something that you do a lot. If it's an in-person group that's about changing writing, it's really up to the group how often that happens. If you're going to, like, each writing group session, you'll focus on one writing group member's writing. That might be something that meets every few weeks. So it sort of depends on what the goal is. Oftentimes when a writing group stops working, it's because it's meeting too often. And you just need to change the time frame for meeting and meet less often so that people have the time to get the writing done and the reading done. And sometimes you just need to change members because people have different goals. I think that if you start organizing your writing group at the front end with the idea that we all have different goals and these are mine, if people's goals change, it's not personal to ask different members in, right? Or to create a different writing group that meets your goals. So sometimes just changing members who share the goals can save the writing group. All that said, when the writing group is no longer working for you or for other members, it's absolutely okay to let it go. And I think that's important to remember. You are not required to have the writing group for the rest of your life. So that's the end of the webinar. So I'm going to now come back to the group. See, am I still here? Hi. So that's sort of what here at Ideas on Fire what we had to share about getting the most out of writing groups. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to add? Jennifer, this question about different strategies more effective for different groups. I'm interested after, given what we've just talked about, if that's at all helpful, or if there are particular issues facing like different groups of people. I do think that focusing on the shared goals is really important, and making sure you're in a group of people where the power dynamics are equal enough that you feel open to sharing can be really important. I'm so glad you joined us today. And this webinar will be, you can replay it at any time, and we'll send out the link on the Grad School Rockstars group. Oh, Jennifer, yes, avoiding the performativity of power. That's really hard. So before I go, I just want to say one thing about that. When I talked about making sure that you have people who you respect and respect you, I think that's really important. The writing group can often reproduce that grad school or conference seminar thing where we're all trying to perform a certain way. And the best writing groups, I think, let us actually write and let us actually be vulnerable with our writing. So I hope you find that group for yourself, and we'll see you next time. Our next webinar is in February about setting writing routines, and we hope to see you there. All right. Have a good day.